What's up creators, Valentin here. For the past few months I've been using the Lumix GH6 and today I would like to share 5 things I like and don't like about Panasonic's newest Micro Four Thirds flagship camera. I absolutely love the new flip and tilt screen on the GH6. You can point it towards the camera to protect it during transport, or flip it out to better frame yourself when shooting something like a vlog or video tutorial. This is something you cannot do with a regular tilt screen like the one that is used in cameras like the Sony A1 for example. Having both a tilt and flip screen gives you the best of both worlds in my opinion. When I was previously taking low angle shots with the GH5 I always had to first flip out the screen to the side and then tilt it up a little, which always felt a little awkward because I was then holding the camera more towards the right side of my body. I'm glad that I no longer have to do this with the GH6 because I can simply tilt the screen upwards. This saves time and feels more natural when holding the camera at a low angle and is definitely an improvement over the Lumix GH5 and something I really wish more camera manufacturers would be doing. So yeah, I do like the new flip and tilt screen on the GH6. I really wish they implemented a slightly bigger screen though, or at least one with a somewhat larger resolution for better focus clarity. The viewfinder is also still the same as on the GH5, but I guess that an upgrade here would have increased the overall price by quite a bit, so I'm perfectly fine with it. As always, build quality is outstanding on the GH6, just like on any other high-end Lumix camera. I would even say that it's slightly better than on the GH5, although I first had to get used to the slightly bulkier body size and weight due to the built-in fan. But although they increased the body size, they still took away some features that were available on the GH5 previously. Sadly, you can no longer use a battery grip for more comfortable vertical shooting. I'm only talking about that fact as a negative here, as you can now power the GH6 indefinitely over a USB-C power delivery cable, which means that a battery grip isn't necessarily needed for other scenarios than vertical shooting. Latency was hugely improved on the GH6 HDMI output, which makes external monitors a lot more attractive to use with this new camera. But there's still something I don't like about the new screen, and from what I can tell, this doesn't seem to be an issue with the GH5. When you plug an HDMI cable into the GH6 and enable info display under HDMI rack output, you won't be able to see any of your camera settings on the GH6, which means that the small screen on the camera becomes absolutely useless. Switching through the different screen modes here is only showing the UI elements on the external monitor, which is really annoying. Hopefully, this is something Panasonic can fix with a future firmware update though. The new and improved button layout is awesome. I am generally a huge fan of more dedicated buttons, which means that I don't have to dig into the menus as often. You can assign whatever action you like to most of the buttons by just pressing down on them and holding for around a second. I have added my most used functions to the different directions of the joystick and wheel buttons, and I absolutely love how many customization options the GH6 has to offer. In terms of overall usability, Panasonic cameras have always been outstanding, and the GH6 is no exception here. Getting used to the new buttons, which are not as tactile and clicky as on the GH5, did take some time, and it does still happen that I start recording accidentally because the activation point of the shutter button feels so spongy, but I must say that I do prefer the new buttons in the meanwhile because they're mostly inaudible, which is very helpful when you're recording videos. We'll be talking about the GH6's new dynamic range boost feature in just a second, but there's one thing in terms of usability that I really don't like about it. Having to enable it and disable it manually, unlike dual native ISO, is one thing, but not being able to switch to some codec variations while the air boost is on is just silly. I really like to use the quick menu, and while the air boost is activated, you simply cannot enable some of the options, as it will just skip them. If you go into the regular menu, you will get a warning that the air boost is on and you can't enable that specific item, but why not put an option right there to just disable it? Instead, you have to go ahead and disable it manually, then choose your desired frame rates and do all steps in reverse if you decide to use the air boost again later on. It's small details like these that can turn a good camera into a perfect one, so please Panasonic, give your users an option for the air boost that automatically activates it for all codecs that support it and disable it for the ones that don't. The built-in waveform monitor got even better in the GH6, as you can now change the size of it more efficiently. It is a bummer though that it doesn't change the range of it when you're using Vlog. which is compressed into a smaller part of the waveform. That means that it shouldn't be necessary to display the waveform in its full height, and I wish it was implemented in a way to save some screen real estate on that tiny camera monitor. The GH6 also comes with a Vectorscope feature, but I find it too small to be really useful. Some additional settings like a skin tone line like the one in DaVinci Resolve and 2x zoom would be nice here as well. Unfortunately, there's still no false color feature, which would make exposing correctly so much easier. Should be possible to be added with a firmware update, but I'm honestly not too sure about whether this has any priority at all for Panasonic. When it comes to dynamic range boost mode, yes, it does make a difference in dynamic range in linear profiles like natural, but even more so in the logarithmic ones like Vlog, for example. I have to say that I really wish they would have implemented something more similar to what the GH5S has with dual native ISO though. Both of these systems have their pros and cons to it, but I do think that dual native ISO is better as an overall system, as it allows you to fully focus on your creativity without introducing additional things you have to take care of. It would be nice if you could automatically enable DR boost for video settings that do support it, like I mentioned previously, but there's a few more things to consider with this new mode that make it worse than the dual native ISO feature. You're basically forced to use an ND filter because ISO starts at 800 for linear profiles and 2000 for logarithmic profiles. And even if you use an ND filter to achieve your desired amount of motion blur, the new mode could leave you with an overexposed image, as most ND filters aren't strong enough, especially when you're using fast lenses. On top of that, this new sensor seems to have some problems with something called CMOS smearing. I personally didn't run into this issue very often, but it is concerning and something that Panasonic can hopefully fix with another update. There's no denying that internal ProRes is very useful if you need to deliver your final projects as fast as possible. Playback is super smooth even on machines that don't have a lot of power, which is really nice. On the other hand, CF Express cards aren't very cheap, and let's be honest, if you got enough funds for CF Express cards, you're likely someone who has a pretty beefy machine anyways, and in that case, ProRes might be at a disadvantage compared to the other internal IPB codecs, which are a lot smaller in size but still offer enough latitude for post-processing in my opinion. Storing these compressed H.264 or H.265 codec variants is a lot cheaper, and if you're someone who recycles old footage very often like me, you won't run out of storage as fast as with ProRes. If playback is a problem, you could always just create some proxies and delete these afterwards to save as much space as possible on your hard drives. As I said, not ideal for projects with very fast turnaround times, but probably the best overall option for everything else. I really like the fact that Panasonic gives you two different apps to control your Lumix cameras wirelessly. One is called the Panasonic Image app and the other one is called Lumix Sync. Both of these apps work great, although the initial connection sometimes takes a little while to set up. And that setup time is what I don't like about using these apps, because you first have to enable it on the camera and only then you're able to start connecting to it using your smartphone or tablet. Maybe I'm an old school kind of person here, but I really wish they offered a small wireless remote to take pictures and start video recordings instead. My first camera was a 600D by Canon, and that offered a small infrared remote control, which I started missing the day I switched to the Lumix GH5. One more thing I do really like about the GH6 is the fact that you can shoot open gate mode, which allows you to account for unpredictable vertical movements. And I do really like this mode because you can then just crop in afterwards to a 16:9 video and still have all that great resolution. The downside is if you want to shoot with 60 frames per second, you have to go to a low resolution mode, which only gives you about 4.4K. So yeah, some trade-offs have to be made here, but overall, that's a pretty decent mode here. So yeah, these are 5 things I like and don't like about Panasonic's new Lumix GH6. But what about you? Is there any specific feature that you can't live without? Let's help each other out and spread some experience in the comments down below. By the way, if you aren't subscribed to this channel yet and you would like to see more interesting stuff about the GH6, cameras, photography, videography, and some other content creator related stuff, then make sure to subscribe to this channel. Right now I'm on Cyprus on the northern side, and I'll be staying here for around a month. And if you have any questions or video ideas that you would like me to take care of, I'll have enough time to do so. So yeah, please just let me know in the comments down below. And before you stop watching, here's another video that I think might be interesting for you. And this one was selected by the YouTube algorithm. Who made the better choice here? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.